What's up guys, this is your man Vendetta. Now today I want to reboot the Legendary Tactica series. Now what is this, you're wondering? This is a tutorial series for online Avatar within the Shogun 2 Total War game. For most of you guys who maybe are starting out in Shogun 2, you probably don't know the units, you've probably played a lot of the single player, but you want to transition into the multiplayer as well, and you want to learn more about the generals, the tactics, the current online play, what's good, what's not, that kind of general stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus this down into different videos. So today we're going to be talking about generals and general types and how to use specific generals and what to kind of watch out for. And then we've also got some individual units. Now the individual units I'll break down into sword units, spear units, naginata units, and cavalry and ranged units. So those are the ones I'm going to be covering, and then we'll actually go in and I'll then start a brand new general just for you guys, and we're going to start down there 0 star and we'll work our way up to about 10 bronze, just so I can show you how to effectively start off at such a low level and kind of give you guys some confidence as well in how to actually beat a lot of players online, perhaps with your such a low rank, and kind of what to go for as well in the early stages of that. So today we will talk about generals. Generals are the most important unit of your army. I think if you've ever played a Total War game before, you don't need me to tell you this, and I think I just got a Facebook message. Well, hey, I'm so popular. So generals are very, very important. You need these guys almost all the time. There are some exceptions where you can afford to throw away your general, but only in extreme circumstances, and we'll come to those later. So what we'll do is we'll go over the skill tree, and we'll see exactly what is on offer. So I think what I'll do is I'll wipe this clean. Okay, as you can see, we've got leadership, bow mastery, and melee combat. We can leave out physical for the moment because really that's not a real skill tree. It's just a wannabe. So leadership, we'll start with that. Leadership is very, very good if you are running a low morale army. So if you're running an Ashigaru army, the first kind of units that you begin to get, they've got a very, very low morale. I'm pretty sure they're packing around about 5 or 6 morale, 7 morale. I'm not even sure on the actual stats on that, but they've got some very, very low morale, and they will break very, very quickly if they think things are going pear-shaped. So if your general gets sniped, if he gets killed, and you've still got the majority of the Ashigaru army there, likelihood is they're probably going to rout under a bit of stress. So you want to make sure you keep your general alive as quickly, not as quickly, but as much as you can. Also with leadership generals, they can really impact the fighting ability of your Ashigaru army as well. If they've got high morale, they generally tend to fight a little bit better, and they tend to break a lot less quickly too. So if you're just starting out, I would recommend going for a leadership general first of all. Wait until you built up some veteran units, and then possibly move on to another type of general. I think leadership is a very safe general to go with because your general's not there in combat, there's not much micro involved, and he really benefits your whole army. When I first started out in Shogun 2, I always went for a leadership general because I had this philosophy that your general is just one unit. If you go for a leadership general, you buff up your whole army. Your whole army gets morale boosts. They get different types of buffs here and there. Whereas if you go for a bow or a melee general, you're only buffing up that one unit. You're only getting one overpowered unit instead of buffing up your whole army. That's the philosophy that I've kind of held for a long, long time. And it's one reason why I wanted to redo this video as well, because I feel as though my philosophies have changed a little bit, and it's more coming down to different circumstances and what armies you actually bring. So what we really want to do to begin with, if we're ever going to start off, I would say immediately get 1 point in each of these, because they are the most important points you will ever need in leadership. Even if you're going for a bow or a melee combat general, you really should be going for these two because you don't get Inspire. I think you can actually leave out Rally if you want, but I always like to put that extra point in there. You can max out a skill tree and then pop in another few skill points in other trees as well. But I generally always go for it. The Inspire ability, probably not the Rally because I'm pretty sure all generals get that. I can't even remember myself, but definitely go for the Inspire because that is a very, very useful thing to have. Then what you want to do is that generally I'll try and max these out, and then I'll probably go for increased aura, and also increased resistance, and then go for stand and fight. That is my general leadership build for any type of general. Sometimes I'll go a bit further and get the increased army morale. Generally, I don't think army morale or scare enemies work that well. I think if you get a legendary item such as Mempo Mask, like one of my friends has, scare enemies could be very, very useful because that Mempo Mask is extremely overpowered, giving -3 morale to any unit around it. But we'll not worry about legendary items for the time being. We're just talking about the skill points that you want to upgrade. So this is the basic. This is kind of what I would usually do. Stand and fight is very, very useful because, let's just read here. When activated, your general will dismount to encourage units nearby and boosting their morale, melee attack, and reload speed. Now, I haven't played with a leadership general very often, quite recently, but they do actually buff up your army, as I was saying earlier. If you pop your general down and stand and fight behind your army on a grind out, they will probably win, depending on obviously the units and the stats and the micro, etc. Stand and fight is a very, very useful and very acceptable and widely used kind of ability to actually have, and I would definitely recommend having that stand and fight ability if you're going to be going for leadership. Because if you're going to go for a leadership, you have to have stand and fight, because otherwise it's not really too much point in going for a leadership general. What you can do is you could go for the increased morale. I think that does actually put on 1 or 2 extra morale per unit on your army, so it could be useful, but again, I probably wouldn't spend an extra 2 points in it. Now, if you want to go for a more of a balanced build, I'd suggest probably going for a bow mastery or a melee combat mastery. Those are the two that I'd probably recommend. I prefer going for the melee combat because I like my general to be able to defend himself if he gets charged, but also if he's in standard fight, he can still do a lot of damage, and he's actually quite tough to take out on the charge, if you like. But that's a general build which I'll normally go for. You can max out scare enemies, increase morale, and then probably go for attack and defense. That is something which I would normally use as a leadership general, but you kind of want to be able to stack everything. But this is the basic kind of bare bone of a leadership for me personally, and that is normally what I'll go for if I'm going to be going for a leadership general. If I want to do scare enemies or increased army morale, that's really dependent on the type of army I want to bring. If I'm going to be bringing an Ashigaru army, I'll definitely bring increased army morale. If I know my opponent is going to bring Ashigaru, or if I think he might, then I might use scare enemies on him, because that could be quite useful. But generally, I'll go for this basic bare bone and then probably stack up my melee, combat tree. So I think that's what we'll do for the leadership general. Now if we go over to melee, because this is possibly the one that I've been using most. Now, as I said before, leadership is good if you're starting out, your units are a bit weak, you haven't quite got your veterans just yet, you haven't got your 9 Chev monks or Dachi or Fire Cav. It's kind of good to go for when you haven't got that sort of stuff. However, when you begin to get some really good veterans, this is where you want to get melee combat. Now, I personally love melee combat. I feel that I can do so much with it. And when we actually talk about stages of a Shogun 2 game, we will talk about the melee combat aspect of it. Because the melee combat aspect, there's a very specific order in which you initiate a cav engagement. And when I begin to talk about actual cav engagements, you'll see that there is a very, very specific order that you do follow if you do have a melee general, and I find that a lot of melee generals generally win the cav engagement for me as well. So I generally like to have them a lot. They're very, very overpowered, especially if you're hitting the prestiges like silver and gold. They are very, very useful. So what we'll do is that we'll start off with melee attack. You want to try and boost this up as much as you can. Then melee defense, of course. Then you want to get 1 for speed because you need to get that charge. And then I think you get that with that. And I can't remember how much you needed for this. I don't know these off by heart, but I do remember 2 points in this. So generally I like to not even bother with morale. I think he's kind of got good enough morale. No penalty against spears and increased bodyguard size. Now these 3 are the pinnacle. These are really what you need. So such with the Inspire, Stand and Fight, increased army morale, those are crucial pretty much. Not necessarily the increased army morale, but if you want to get a full leadership, that's kind of crucial. But Inspire and Stand and Fight, they're crucial. With melee, it's Banzai, no penalty, and increased bodyguard size, especially no penalty against spears, and we'll see why later on. This basically means that you can charge into spears and there's no penalty. as we will see, generals are mounted units, and mounted units, of course, have got a penalty against spears. They generally don't do too well, and a lot of units like Yari Ashigaru, Naginata Samurai, Nagi monks, Nagi attendants, and also Yari Samurai. They've got some bonus versus cavalry, and they will not be able to use that bonus versus cavalry if you've got no penalty against spears. So it's incredibly useful. I see a lot of people online charge towards my general with spears, even though it's a melee general, and I'm just like, yep, I'll have that, and I would go in and wipe out a Yari Samurai unit for free. Increased bodyguard size is definitely useful. It kind of increases your hit points a little bit, and pretty much almost makes your general a fully fledged cav unit. So that is very, very useful. I think on about a large, it's about 36 men in your general's bodyguard unit. That's enough. That's almost the same as a light cav unit, except you have to remember, if you're probably about if you've got this many skill points to save or spend, sorry, you will have an overpowered general. He will rape on the field. Very literally, he'll just destroy. So this is what I like to go for. It's quite safe in the sense that your general is wrapped up in, bubble wrap. He's not going to die too easily, but at the same time, he can do some insane damage as well. So I'd highly recommend going for a melee general. Once you've got your kind of main competitive sort of builds laid up, where you've got your monks, you've got your Naginata Samurai, your Nodachi, all those are veterans, you've got two good heavy cav, when you've got all of that sort of stuff, then it's good to begin moving into that melee combat area. That's really what you want to be doing, because they can win cav engagements for you. But there is a specific way, as I said, that you need to proceed with cav engagements to make sure that your general does not die, because that's of course the risk. You're wrapping him up in bubble wrap. He's a lot harder to take down, but at the same time, if you're charging him in there head on against the Yarikav, he's going to get destroyed pretty quickly. So what we'll do is that we'll now move on to bow mastery. Now this is the one which I have got the least expertise in, I have to admit. However, what I love about a bow mastery is that it's very, very safe general to play. Again, it doesn't quite buff up your whole army, but it makes your general very, very versatile, makes him a very, very strong unit as well in the game, especially if your general's the last guy standing and you've got, you've managed to get into the late game. Bow units on horseback are extremely potent in the late game, especially because normally the kind of initiation of the cav engagement in the early game has been and gone. Pretty much the majority, if not all, cavalry on the field is destroyed. So if you've got your general left and he's a bow mastery, you're going to have a field day. You're going to be kiting the enemy player all day long, and you'll most likely win as well. So you want to enable bow to begin with. Generally, stuff which I would personally go for is probably the accuracy, the ammunition, and I would try and get down to probably increased range as quick as I could. So I'm going to need a quick moment just to quickly look at what we've got. It requires 1 in speed, so again it's like charge needs 2 in both. Reload speed, and this needs 5 points. So I'd probably say go for accuracy, because the thing is with bow cavalry units, you never ever want your bow cavalry units to be just stood there firing shots away at the enemy. You never want that. You want your cavalry to be in and out, in and out. You want to be microing them constantly. This is the trade-off. You see, each general has got a trade-off. Leadership, he's great for your whole army, but it makes him personally weak and also vulnerable in stand and fight. Melee combat, he's great. He's wrapped up in all this bubble wrap. He's hard to take down. He's OP as FUCK, but at the same time, he is very, very vulnerable because you're charging him into actually melee combat. Bow units are vulnerable because, of course, they're vulnerable in melee combat, but they're also vulnerable to other ranged units as well. If you're going to be going up against, let's say, a bow warrior monk, he could be very, very vulnerable, and it's very, very hard because bow units are so micro intensive. You have to constantly be using them all the time. You have to make sure they're in the right position and they're not getting caught out by enemy matchlock fire, enemy bows, enemy light cav units which could trap them down, trap them, and then call in the heavy cav. You don't want any of that. So they're pretty difficult to use. They're definitely the most micro-intensive, but at the same time, they're possibly the most rewarding and possibly the most skillful general to play as well. That's probably disputed, but I personally feel, though, they are the most, difficult to play because of the micro. And bow cav, you never want them stood still because they'll get shredded by, bow samurai, matchlock fire, bow warrior monks. You want to be constantly, you know, poking them in and out of enemy range, and I'll definitely show you that in the later stages of Legendary Tactica. So I generally don't tend to go for reload speed. You really want to go for reload speed if you're going to be stood there having a good old skirmish. Generally, you want to do that with bow units, but I think accuracy is a key priority because you'll get the most bang for your buck with your extra ammunition if you go with accuracy. Having kind of special abilities like this is pretty useful, like whistling arrows and fire arrows. Fire arrows, I think, pretty much just do more damage, and they can also ignite wooden buildings, as it says there. It's not really too useful, but it makes the game look pretty if you've got a higher graphics card. Whistling arrows are good because it reduces the morale melee attack and reload speed of the enemies targeted by them. So I would definitely say get whistling arrows. That's a very, very, very good unit. Sorry, not unit, a very, very good ability to get. Bow damage could be useful. Again, it's kind of getting that bang for buck with the extra ammunition. I'd probably say get fire arrows because it's just an extra, you know, sort of ability you can have whilst your whistling arrows are on cooldown. You really want to have your whistling arrows firing as soon as the enemy enters combat. That's kind of the best time to do it. But again, we'll go through that in the later stages of this series. So we've got 10 points. We could go for another one, although I'm not entirely sure. It greatly increases the bow damage, so yeah, sure, why not? As I said, I do need to actually go through bow and play some bow gen because I've never actually fully played a bow general properly, so it would be very, very interesting to see me play one of those. I think we'll go with another accuracy. That way we're fully accurate, we still do a lot of damage, and we've got extra ammunition, a little bit of reload speed, but again, that's not really something we're looking for, and I'll show you why later on, as I said, in the series. Now, increased range is something which you definitely want. I think he is 150 range to start off with. Now he's about 175, and I think if we go for this one, he'll now be 200. Sniping could be useful, although if I'm totally honest, it's kind of pretty pointless to get. I'm not sure. I haven't tested this before, and I'll have to test it at some stage, or probably for the next video. I might just mention it quickly. But your general cannot be hidden in this game. I think in most Total War games, apart from Rome 2, your general was never hidden. But in Shogun 2, that is a definite fact. You cannot hide your general. So it's pretty pointless if you do go for this. Let's just read it quickly. If hidden already, your general and his bodyguard can shoot without betraying their position. Well, I don't think your general can actually hide anyway. I'm not sure if different rules apply if you actually select this sniping ability. But your general is always visible. So it's a pretty pointless one to go for. And I will test that later on. So that's pretty much what we really wanted out of a bow. This is the bare bones, if you like, and as you can see, as I said, you know, we've got whistling arrows, fire arrows, so we've got two different types of abilities. Whistling arrows for when they get into combat, fire arrows just as much as you can. Bow damage, still do a bit of bow damage, but at the same time we still got some accuracy in there as well, and the accuracy really does give a lot of bang for the buck with the extra ammunition. It really means that each volley that we deliver, we're going to be killing more people. You know, let's say if we didn't upgrade accuracy, we could be getting, you know, let's say 10 men per volley that we're killing in an enemy unit. With 3, we could be getting 20, 25 men. You know, it's unrealistic, kind of statistics or figures, but you know, just to kind of give you a bit of an idea and put things into context. So that's a general build what I would go for. You don't really want to mix and match, but we still got another 7 points left. So out of these, I would go for an Inspire, and I'd probably stack up a lot of melee attack as well. What we could do is we could go for Charge. I don't think we can quite go for Banzai just yet. Oh no, we could. We could even go for Banzai. So, I mean, this could be quite a viable option. As I said, you never really want to you never really want to mix and match. You generally want to try and go for one tech tree, but at the same time, it can be good to kind of mix and match. So go for the bare bones, and then you can specialize in something else. So for example, with the bow unit in this kind of a configuration, we've got an Inspire, so we can actually inspire our units as they're in combat, which can actually win or lose you a battle. You know, we've got, as I said, good accuracy, a lot of ammunition. We can kite, we're a bit speedy, but we've also got the benefit of if they do engage us in close combat, we've got a Banzai ability there, and we've also got a good melee attack as well to fend off any enemy cavalry units. So, I hope you've enjoyed this. It's been a real deep breakdown. If you've got any comments, please put them down below. If you have any ulterior thoughts, they're also very, very welcome. You know, I'm just giving you my personal opinion on this sort of stuff, showing you guys what's being played out there at the moment, and also Really, this is just kind of a guide to help you go through and start. Because if you don't really know what to get, this is very, very useful. And I think I might actually have to go play with this general now, actually, because it's looking pretty sick. Looks like I've got a lot of melee there, and I can do some kiting with some bow units. So I hope you have enjoyed this first Legendary Tactics series. Please put down below as well if you'd like to see a specific army that you like played, any questions that you may have, and make sure you spread this video around as much as you can. If there's somebody that's just starting out in Shogun 2 that you know, or they're looking to play online but are too scared to play online, just tell them to come watch this video, link it to them, and also I'll put down below a link to my Steam group page where you'll easily be able to talk to me and have access to me if you like. And yeah, I hope you have enjoyed this. As always, guys, have a good day, and bye bye for now.